Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Lund, and I'm the Director of Curriculum and Content at PBS Kids. I'm excited that I can share with you today about my job and how I've gotten to where I am, and hopefully inspire you to think about a career in children's media as well. Before I got to this place, first I got my degree at Swarthmore College in psychobiology, and also my master's degree in developmental psychology from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And that was really the start of my journey into kids media. As I mentioned, I graduated from Swarthmore, and right from there, because I had also gotten my teaching certification in elementary education, I started teaching at Mafacton School District, which is nearby, and I taught first and fourth grade. And then I decided that wasn't quite the right fit for me, so I went to graduate school at UMass, and that's where I got into the field of children and media. From there, I became a freelancer with Sesame Workshop, helping them with their research department, and also some curriculum work. I moved then to become the Director of Research and Curriculum for Little Einsteins, which was a show that aired on Disney Junior for a number of years. And when that show's production ended, I went back to freelance consulting and worked with lots of different media groups, including Sesame again, and Nick Jr., and Disney Channel. And then in 2014, I started working for PBS Kids as the Director of Curriculum and Content, particularly on the Ready to Learn grant, which is a grant that's from the Department of Education. The funding from that grant helps support creation of media for kids, especially kids from low income and underserved communities. So I mentioned that I was teaching first, and I was teaching elementary education, and a lot of people wonder what that might be like. And I also really like to talk even more about how that's helped me, how that helps me in my career today. So I mentioned I taught first and fourth grade. So when you're teaching first grade, there's a lot of helping kids learn to read, and really setting them up for the rest of their school years. Fourth grade was really the favorite year grade that I taught. I really liked that the kids were, kind of becoming almost, adult, moving into the teenage years, but they still weren't quite in that, that adolescent stage, and really were still very kid-like and needed the support from teachers like me. So teaching really helped me with understanding curriculum and how to implement that in the classroom. And I've taken that knowledge and I now apply that to the work that I do now. And instead of applying curriculum to a classroom setting, I now apply curriculum to our games and our video content that you might see on TV or online in our apps. So when we're talking about curriculum, we're talking about what we want kids to learn. And so when we look at our PBS Kids content in particular, but any content that's teaching something, it might have something that is focused on social studies or science, reading, helping kids learn about social and emotional skills, and really there's a whole range of things that we are trying to teach in our content at PBS Kids. And to help make sure that we're doing that in a way that kids are understanding, we use a tool called formative research. And this is really when we take stories and games and give them to kids in early stages before they're out on air. And we see how kids are learning from them and if they even like them at all. So some questions we might ask are things like, do the kids like it? What did they learn from it? What do they remember? Do they understand it? And, were they even able to play it at all if we're talking about something like a game? We take that information and we use it to help make changes to the games, and then they come out in the way that you see them on your tablets or on your TVs. And and then sometimes we need to also ask more questions about whether or not the content is really teaching kids what we wanted them to learn and how much did they learn. So we do something called summative research, which is testing our content to see how much it's moving the needle, to see how much kids are really learning from it, and if it can make a difference. So working at PBS Kids is really my dream job. It's incredibly satisfying to work there. I learn a lot from the people that I work with, whether it's the producers that create and make our shows and games, to the people on the editorial staff that I work with directly every day, who are helping the producers reach the high standards that we have for our content. It's also really a lot of fun and allows me to meet some kids television stars, including people like Chris Pratt from Wild Kratts and Sonia Manzano from Sesame Street. And the one thing I usually ask students when I'm giving this presentation is what PBS shows they remember from when they were younger. What were their favorites and what did they like watching? And some of those shows may still be on the air, like Arthur and Clifford and even Wild Kratts. And then we're also creating a lot of new content all the time. Shows like Molly of Denali, Eleanor Wonders Why, which will be coming out in September, and Xavier Little and the Secret Museum are all newer programs that you may or may not be familiar with. But hopefully you'll take a look and check them out. And I'd love to know what you think of them and how they compare to the shows that you watched when you were younger. So as times are changing and technology is changing, kids are watching our shows and playing our games in really different ways than what you probably did when you were a kid, and especially from what I did when I was a kid. So what we usually called our television programs are not just found on TV anymore. And you can stream our programming on many different platforms, as well as watch them on your standard station. So you can find our video content on places like our PBS Kids video app, on YouTube, on the desktop computer on our website, pbskids.org. Lots of different places that you can watch our stuff. Many of you are probably most familiar with PBS on the television through your local station, which is WHYY. We have stations all over the country, and I actually work for our national PBS headquarters, not for one of those stations, but we create the content that those stations then air and that you see on your computers and on your tablets and on your televisions. Our games also are found in lots of different places. We have apps like our PBS Kids Games app where we can play games from across all of our different properties. We also have standalone apps for our different shows. So there are some apps that are developed just for Wild Kratts or Odd Squad. You can find our games also on pbskids.org on the different property websites. Not only are we creating the shows and the games, we're creating things for parents and stations as well. So There are lots of activities that are created for parents to do with their kids, um, and also things that are created for our stations to do with families in person, something like our family and community learning workshops. And lately, since everybody's been stuck at home, they've been working to do those workshops in an online format as well. And in addition to the things for parents, we're also creating a lot of things for teachers. So many of you maybe have an experience with some of our PBS Learning Media materials as part of your work from home. I know I've seen some teachers assigning videos to watch or other types of content that might be coming from PBS Learning Media. So we're glad that we can help support this distance learning that you're all doing as well. So one question you might be asking in general is, what exactly do I do at PBS Kids? So my job is really to first help decide what curriculum a certain show and the games that go with it might be teaching kids. So for Odd Squad, for example, we had a math curriculum for that. And then a lot of the work that I do is to create things like learning frameworks that give the producers and our staff the information they need to know about what kids at different ages might learn about math and that they could teach in their shows and games. So I help them with that. And then as they're writing or developing the games, I get the chance to look at things like the scripts for the shows, the designs for the games, and other types of stages along the way as the shows and games are being made to help make sure that the information is being presented in a way that kids can learn from it and that makes sense, and also just even that it's safe. So sometimes I'm giving notes to say, please make sure these characters are wearing their bike helmets when they're riding their bikes. And other times it might be something like, this math problem is being presented in a really confusing way for a 4-year-old, so let's try it to present it in a different way so that they can understand it better. So I get the chance to see lots of different shows and games before they're even out on the air and in your hands on tablets. And I get to really be a part of the creative process in developing them, which is really exciting and fun. So I want to share my contact information with you in case you have some questions. I encourage you to please send me an email and ask me anything you would like to know. It's a really interesting field to get into, and I hope that you consider it. And even if you don't want to make TV or games for kids, the one thing I can tell you is that the process for making things for grown-ups is also very similar. And so you can learn a lot just by taking a look at the different steps that I go through in my job and others that I work with, and trying to figure out if that's something that would interest you. And hopefully doing it for kids is something that would be even more interesting and that you'd have a chance to do someday. So I wish you guys a lot of luck, and I hope you're enjoying the time at home with your families. And I hope that I get to meet with everybody next year and deliver this presentation in person. Thank you.